Welcome to Dr. Grant's The Athlos Life podcast, where we interview lifelong athletes who've become masters in their fields, whether in the realm of athletics or in areas of business, leadership, writing, speaking, medicine, or any other areas that they have proven to be high achievers. Through the world of athletics, we learn lessons in performance, health, leadership, and excellence, and explore the application of these lessons into the rest of our lives through laid back conversations with athletes and people of excellence. Please do not assume any information on this podcast to be medical advice, and please always seek the expertise of your personal healthcare provider. Now, join us in leveling up through lessons from training, competition, and pursuing excellence.
Caleb Watson, thank you so much for being on here with me. I really appreciate it. I wanted to jump in. You have an awesome story that I would love for people to be able to hear and hopefully get some encouragement from, especially other dads who might be listening to this, and moms, just parents in general. Um, First, briefly, you've been struggling with lymphoma for a few years, but I wanted to jump in a little before lymphoma, before your first diagnosis. Tell me a little bit about what your life was like.
Well, I would say pretty textbook, rough childhood upbringing, a lot of drugs, alcohol, violence, the kind of spare you on a bunch of that. Definitely relatable to most people that, were lower class or even maybe even a little bit below that. So my dad, he was really strung out on drugs. He was great in the beginning. It kind of turned real bad there for a while, and at the same time, my mom was struggling with alcohol. So she's sober now, thank God. She's awesome. But basically, just had to cut ties with that. It put me in a lot of situations, and I kind of got bitter. I found mixed martial arts when I was probably about 13, and I had a local guy. We didn't have no money, but he actually paid for my membership all the way until I joined the army. So I just always had a place to go and kind of get some of my frustrations out, which was nice. I probably needed that more than anything. Um, and then I'd say going into the army, I went into that maybe a little not in the best headspace. A pretty good one, for the job title, I guess. But I've just always kind of found struggle and kept it around as much as possible. Like I was very comfortable in whatever that looked like. So I'd say 90% of my life I just made it harder than what it had to be and did that. So I got to serve in the military, man. I was in the army, deployed, enjoyed enjoyed the camaraderie and the people I was with, and always been very physically active, always competed in mixed martial arts, always lifted weights. I started really struggling with alcohol probably around the time I was 18. When I joined, I was already drinking before that. I lived on my own in high school and stuff, so I was already kind of on the path to do that. Um, Yeah, dude. So started getting really dependent on it, I'd say. I was more of a functioning alcoholic, so it didn't slow me down in my career. It didn't slow me down nothing. I got out of the military. I was a lineman. I didn't really have any time to really transition and get my head in the right place, or if there was a right place in that time of my life, I don't really know. But
How old were you when you entered the military, and then how old were you when you transitioned to being a lineman?
18, almost 19 years old, and then when I got out of the military in 2017, so 2012 to 2017, and then when I got out and uh, started being a lineman a couple years after that. So I worked some typical jobs, and then building pools, all blue collar stuff, and then I got into being a lineman, and that's kind of how it all took place with that. Uh, I didn't recognize my addiction. I kind of knew it was there because even when I was in the military, I was always fighting and going out to bars and causing problems and stuff, um, and I knew that I could fight, so like it made it a lot easier for me to engage in that because I wasn't very good at using my words, or I'd get overwhelmed or just mad. If you put yourself in bad situations, it's kind of only one way out for men, it seems like. So
Yeah.
I would definitely utilize that resource as much as possible, and would almost get glorified for it too. When you're surrounded with that kind of tempo, man, and you excel in it, and people they really give you like a pat on the back for being able to, right? It's like the cool stories
Yeah.
that go around. And I was doing all that in high school too, man. I was always fighting whoever was the bully or the asshole or whoever, you know what I mean? I was always willing to engage in that. So I created probably more issues than anything. I'd got out, kept drinking, pretty much a daily thing, getting really, really intoxicated on the weekends. The military prescribed me Adderall, so I had my run with that where I had some issues with drugs, right?
Mhm.
And I put that down, but I was still drinking. We had my son, and I would say I still didn't really understand or recognize the idea of being an alcoholic or whatever that looked like. So I just figured, man, I pay all the bills, I do all the things. If it doesn't make it to where I don't show up to work, then who cares?
Mhm.
So even when I got diagnosed with cancer, I was still drinking. I just had to change what I drank because the other ones would make me sick. So
Mhm.
um, I just found a beer that didn't suck, and I'd be buying. I was still building power lines while going through chemo. So I mean, my life didn't change. I just had to show up to places and get chemotherapy, and I lost about 50 pounds during that whole deal. I had some issues happening with my liver. I would imagine that's due to the chemo and the alcohol. Uh, got into remission and then immediately walked back into just celebrating, right? I got my port removed so I could go and train and do the things that I missed. And then I wasn't really taking care of myself. Still going to the gym, still very active, but just wasn't quite ready to put it down. So got re-diagnosed, got sober. And I didn't get sober because of the cancer. I started having a really hard time being okay with myself. And
Mhm.
I wasn't really happy with who I was, and I knew that I deserved to be happy. I just needed to see what that looked like, and I couldn't do that with any quote unquote help from a substance. So I
Yeah.
cut everything out of my life.
So, what was it exactly that you weren't happy with? Was it the way you felt? Was it like what was it exactly?
Man, I have never really been my own biggest fan. Like I'm very good at reflecting, and I fix problems. That's what I do. Like I create systems, and I pay attention to patterns, and I get obsessive with it, and I just. Sometimes, man, you look a little bit further in the mirror and you realize that you're not really happy with what's there, whether you have the physicalities or not. I could have abs and do all the things, and I still just uh, wasn't really happy. I would think a lot about past decisions I made, mistakes, and um, I just I needed something that was going to be a little bit more fulfilling than, surviving the day. and
Mhm.
uh and that's where I started leaning into my faith more. I've always believed in God. I if anything, I did the worst thing, which is like I knew that God was real. I just didn't care.
Yeah.
And uh and and even my faith base is like a lot of people are look at all the miracles that happen in the Bible. I look at, like when David left the army, and when Peter denied God, and like I have my connection is with more of the darker sides of the Bible, because I think that kind of resonates more with me because everybody was still accepted afterwards. So uh,
Yeah.
my faith is definitely based on that. Like I've never been scared of hell or anything like that. I feel like I've created a pretty solid hell here, that I'm constantly repairing. So most people kind of go down that hole out of fear, and I just it's something special about being able to be accepted no matter what level you're at. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely. Now, you touched on something that I think is so powerful about the Bible and really about God's love and His mercy. The When you look back to the patriarchs, like Abraham, the man of faith, he was so scared that he was willing to lie and say his wife was his sister and let someone else sleep with her.
Mhm.
David, the one you mentioned, a man with a heart after God's own heart, but yet, he had an affair with his wife's, or sorry, with his one of his soldiers' wives, and then had the soldier murdered because he became complacent and left the army, like you mentioned,
Mhm.
went down a very dark path, and yet he was still redeemable. Um, so many people in the Bible, every single one had something that
Mhm.
you might say is unredeemable, but yet was totally redeemable. And listening to you talk, you really sound like that yourself. Like you've been through, valley of the shadow of death. You've been through a lot of darkness, but yet you've found God's light, and that's really what's attracted you to it. Can you tell me a little bit more about what brought you to God exactly, and what made you decide to start leaning on your faith?
So man, I've always been a really hard charger my whole life. Like I've never needed a lot, but I've always had more than I needed as far as like completing a task and um, with everything. I mean, I've never physically been without. Mentally, I've always been very in tune, and I always say like there's not many people that can suffer as much as I can and be like all right with it.
Hmm.
It got to the point where, you got this window, man. Time starts to take over, right? And then you realize that that window gets smaller and smaller, and then you have the opportunity to become a little bit wiser, and you really start getting focused on what that is. Like, what does that last 6 inches of the rope look like, and what do you want that to be? And I just realized that I've been doing it by myself for so long that there was a ready thing there for me that I didn't have to be the baddest guy in the room. I didn't have to be the strongest guy. I didn't have to be the smartest guy. I could just focus on being a little bit better and pitch a lot of that weight I got tired of carrying. So for me, I got so many things, even with like the Instagram. A lot of people don't realize I've only had Instagram for like a year and a couple months. I've never had social media before. I've never put my story out there. Uh, Not because
Yeah,
I
you have
didn't.
like 100,000 followers.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's grown really quickly, man. On all platforms, it's been doing pretty well. So I'm humbled by that. But that's also the thing too, is like it's not about that for me. I don't really care. I've never been the cool kid in school, so I'm not really worried about the popularity contest. If I
Hmm.
can truly impact like a handful of people and make a difference in that regard, then I'm doing what I feel like I'm supposed to. And I also think, you got to shovel some shit in life, right? To recognize some of the other good things, and got to help you move the mountain, but you got to bring a shovel. So there's so many different analogies you can use, but I think a lot of the stuff that I've been through is for this moment, and I don't know how much more of the window I got. I don't know, when the purpose is served. I don't know what that looks like. I know I'm getting closer to it, which is exciting and terrifying at the same time, right? Because when it's done, it's done. So utilizing that time the right way has been a huge focal point for me at this stage in my life. But
Yeah, you mentioned you don't know when it's done. For our listeners, so you've mentioned your history with cancer. So you've been battling lymphoma.
mhm,
You've You're now in round three with it. Can you tell
mhm.
us a little bit more specifically about the lymphoma and what's going on?
Yeah, so the first time it was found, man, I was just super tired, and which I thought was just kind of like depression because I felt that, so much too. But uh, I ended up getting to where I was falling asleep in traffic, and I just didn't have any energy at all, and I started having a lot of pressure in my stomach. Well, I went to the VA and went through that whole deal, and they found a fairly large spot on my aortic artery, and that they couldn't remove, so because they were worried about it getting into my blood. It ended up getting into my blood anyway, so it's kind of pointless. But they were worried about the surgery killing me, so they removed some other ones I had. I had quite a few in my lower abdomen, and it was like stage 3, stage 4. Lymphoma is kind of staged a little weird, but for people that don't know, you could have one down in your lower abdomen and then one at the top, and you're technically stage 4 because that's just how it's staged. It doesn't mean that it's like, it just means that the chance of it spreading to other places is a lot higher. So
Mhm.
that was the first diagnosis. I had several, it was like 30 something different spots in my abdomen. And we did that with the hard chemo and some other stuff. And then I got into remission. The next time they found it again was on the aorta artery. So it was the same spot. But at this point, we had to kind of go a different route, or so they said. I'm not a doctor, so I don't really know how that works. But uh, so we attacked it with like a really strong immunotherapy that was fairly new, and I ended up getting a bunch of blood clots and some other issues that came about that. But in turn, it kind of killed my body's ability to naturally fight the cancer,
Mhm.
that's what chemo does, dude. It kills everything, and in my opinion, just kind of puts you in a position where you are pretty reliant on it. So now this time they found it. They found on the same spot, and then under my armpit, in my abdomen, on my scapula, and then they found some spots around my colon. But Uh, Now it's just, focusing
Yeah.
on some holistic type approaches and possibly some other things I'm gonna venture out on in overseas and in a few different areas.
What have your doctors mentioned about it? Have they recommended any specific plan moving forward, or is that something you're interested in? Or
So for me, and this is for me, again, I'm not a doctor and I don't want anybody that's dealing with that to take what I say. This is my own decisions and mine and mine alone, right? I've done all the chemos, I've done all the stuff like that. I think that there's a way that you can do a lot with diet and nutrition. I think there's a lot of great things that are out there that aren't really talked about, potentially that they don't make enough money to be talked about. But uh, I think that everything's kind of designed to kill us. And if you don't take care of the car that drives you around every day, you're gonna break down somewhere. So my little bit of advice for anybody, whether you have cancer, maybe you're concerned about that, there's so much stuff in our food that you can avoid. You can't avoid all of it, obviously, but if you do get your body as alkalinic as possible and you get rid of some of these fillers, then your chances, of survival are going to be a lot higher. So I'm just doing some alternative methods. There's some different things that I'm taking that I probably shouldn't because I don't want to talk about it yet because I don't want to give anybody the wrong information because if it doesn't work, obviously I don't want to be a part of that. But
yeah,
um,
understood.
yeah, there's a lot of options out there, man. So it's nothing against oncologists. It's more against like modern medicine in the United States. And I
Yeah,
just think that there's a lot of things that we don't understand. And I'm gonna go see what those things look like.
absolutely. Going overseas, you'd mentioned, is there a particular place you thought about going?
Yeah, so I'm probably gonna end up in Tijuana, or Colombia. I've talked with some really cool, man, high-end people, both of those places. I'm getting some more information. Man, I'm highly blessed. I mean, even here locally, like I live in a little town, Poplar Bluff, Missouri, and um, I've made connections and friends with some really impactful, important people here. And man, I mention certain things that I need, and then all of a sudden it's there. Like, it's I'm in the perfect spot. To get things taken care of the best way possible. Probably better than what most people can because most people are scared to ask questions or to network. And I'm in a position where I've organically networked pretty well. And uh, like I said, man, I'm in a really good spot as far as being able to maybe even utilize some outside sources, probably better than most people. So I'm humbled by that too.
Absolutely, man. Isn't that awesome how God provides that kind of stuff?
Dude,
Um,
that's
you,
one thing that people don't realize is that during this whole time, like I've got a not for profit, and the only person that doesn't profit from it is me, right? And it's for cancer. And I will never run myself through it. I will never promote something that's for me and my treatment. I'd rather spend my time promoting other people and getting money raised for them
Mhm.
because every time I do that, I have a surplus, and then I give it back. And like even this last one of my best friends just died from something kind of similar, and dude, I raised a bunch of money, uh, took care of it. He ended up dying. I pushed it over to somebody else. I didn't have money to help the next person, but I had it in my heart to just donate it myself. So I donated it myself, and within 48 hours, the money came back, and then it could be utilized other places. Like if you ever get something in your stomach that you feel is the right thing to do, man, you let God sort out the rest of stuff. Just do what you feel and the rest of it'll happen. It'll work out.
Man, that's such a powerful statement you just said. What's the name of your nonprofit for listeners who might be interested?
Yeah, so it's called the First 90. I hate to use the term rebranding, right? Because it's such a like oversaturated comment, but I narrowed it down a lot. So the first time I got diagnosed with cancer, I couldn't afford to go from short-term to long-term disability. My wife and I, I've got three step kids, and then we've got our child together. So we got a big household, man. And at this time he was little, so my wife stayed home and took care of him, and I still had to go to work. And I think that the one impact I could do immediately is help people from the short term to long term, right? And
Mhm.
it's not like a raise money to go to research or any of this other BS that people push. It's just, I'm not going to impact millions of people, but I know for a fact I can impact 3, 5, 7, 30 people in a year that are direct, you know what I mean? Help them directly. So that's what I've been focusing on, little stuff like that. Besides my stories, I always put GoFundMe's on my story, for like little kids or something that are dealing with it. I think that's probably harder than like I would rather get every form of cancer than my kids to get any form of cancer, right? So
Yeah,
I
I
think
hear you on that.
yeah, the impact with a little kid, man, is like that's just totally different. I can fight. I'm good. I've been doing this my whole life. So for me, that's easy. I mean, I can only imagine what these parents are going through when their little kid has a brain tumor or something, how scary that is and helpless. So I think if we turned our focus more to we're never going to get a cure, right? Like no one's ever going to tell us what that looks like, but we can impact directly as people, and even with my following, it's a sad thing. I've got almost 140,000 on Instagram, 100 and I think like 10,000 on Facebook. I've got a big following, man. And if I post a GoFundMe, on my story or something, 7,000 people will view it. Maybe 100 people click it. Maybe 40%, 30% of those people actually donate. But
Mhm.
if I post like a shirt or something, that shirt gets clicked 1,000 times, and maybe 600 of them buy that shirt. And in my mind, it's like, yeah, that's cool, man, because it helps another way, right? I only promote like my friends or companies that I really like, but it's like, could you go without the shirt and just donate the $20 to this person? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
what's there's this disconnect in just building those relationships and doing something just because and
yeah,
that's probably the one thing that I want my message to be at the end of it is like just do the uncomfortable thing, man. Like if you do something that's going to help someone else, be of service to somebody, because otherwise this whole life is just a miserable thing when it's all about you.
yeah, absolutely, man. Listening to your story, from what you talked about when you were younger, struggling with abuse and
Mhm.
drugs and alcohol in the family, through the military, lymphoma, your own struggle with alcoholism. I'm reminded of a story. Two twins. One of them ends up in prison. One of them ends up as a CEO of a Fortune 500 company and doing really well and has a huge, awesome family. Both of them were raised with an abusive father who struggled with alcoholism. And both of
Mhm.
them were asked later in life, what's the reason for why you're where you're at? And they both give the same answer: my
Mhm.
father.
Yep.
And listening to you, you've made the purposeful and intentional decision to turn everything that's happened to you into something that's happened for you. And even bigger, I'm seeing a man who's taken the focus off of himself and using it as a way to lift others up. That's powerful, man. That is such a powerful message.
I appreciate that, man. I do my best to explain to people, even like I've got a coaching business, man, and it's so much different than what people think. Like I can get anybody in shape. That's not the point. And I don't market it the right way. I don't do all, but I pick the people that are on my team, right? And it's the one conversation, right? Like the difference between those two people are the ones that they surround themselves with. One person in put themselves in a box and they related to the people that were experiencing similar things to them and which
Hmm.
caused them to go down that side of it. And then the other person seen an opportunity to utilize the same group of people but on a higher success rate. And then that's was slingshotting them. He spent time with the kids that had the family. He spent time with the dads that should have been his dad. He spent the time with those people instead of burying yourself in a box to where it's like, okay, well, I can only relate to the poor, drunk, abused kids. I can only relate to the ones that's been molested. I can only relate, well, these other side do the same thing, but it's they're networking with people that are in different stages of life, and that's the beautiful thing about this, and then the hardest thing. Look, we're all playing the exact same game, but we don't know the rules to it at all. And how are you going to play a hand when you don't know the rule set? So you're constantly learning and trying to save these things to give you a step up at some point in your life, but then you don't use the card ever.
Yeah.
And that's where you get stuck and complacent and sad and you let the intrusive thoughts come in. Those are all there for all of us. and
Mhm.
on paper, my life probably looks, a little rough, right? And it kind of sucks and stuff. But also, if your hardest thing was having the love of your life leave you, or your high school sweetheart that was your everything break up with you, that's your hardest moment. That hard moment is no different than mine. It's the same. We're gonna deal with it, and it's gonna impact us in such a way that is going to be detrimental. So
Mhm.
the competition between whose life is shittier is just kind of like, man, what's the point, And you do that with combat vets too. It's like, well, I got blown up. Well, I got shot. Well, my buddy died. Well, my mom died. I didn't have a mom. It's like, bro, at the end of the day, all these things happen, and we're just forcing ourselves in this solitude, right? Like you separate yourself from everyone else because you're so much different, and it sucks so much worse for you. And it's like, does it? I mean, have you tried to have a conversation with a homeless man? That'll humble you. Like,
Yeah.
there's so many opportunities we have to build relationships and connections and learn, but you got to be humbled to all of it. Otherwise, you're just as the same as every other dude. It's the same thing with the social media, right? Everybody shows that they have a Ferrari. They don't show how they got it. 'Cause a lot of people don't know how they got it. So
Yeah.
if you can bridge that gap and be like, yeah, dude, you're making $200,000 a month, and you should just have the motivation and the discipline. It's like, well, how did you have it? How do you help somebody that never had the opportunity to start, right? Like, how do you give somebody something that makes them feel equal to you, and they understand that these are decisions that you can start making now, dude. I'll be 32 in a few days, and I fucked up most of it. But did I, or do now I have more things that I can relate to people, and I can communicate, I can articulate my thoughts a little bit better, right? So there's two sides of it, there's this that you see where I've got the little logo in the background and all that stuff, and then there's just this simple change of where I just stopped painting. But like the internet is gonna see this, they're gonna see this part of it all, and it's like, everybody's got the half-ass painted room, dude. Like, if more
Yeah.
people would show that, it's not necessarily going to make your following better, but it's going to make a better following, right? It's not going to maybe raise it, but you're going to get the right people following you because, dude, you're just like my desk isn't tidy. I don't have a perfect carpet. My life is a wreck
Mhm.
most of the time,
Yeah.
but that's
And
all right.
and man, I love the way you just pointed back to like your intentionality with how you're choosing to see things when you said that you've messed everything up, but did you?
Hmm.
It actually reminded me my brother and I coach our local club wrestling team here, and like with my children, I made a comment in an interview with them recently that you know none of us want our kids to experience anything hard, but is that really true? Like personally, I don't want my kids to all go undefeated because then they never learn how to lose and how to grow from it. Then they never learn how to turn that struggle into a positive, leading exactly to the kind of choices that you're choosing to make.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. You can't. It's the same thing. Like I've entered my kids are freak athletes, man. They're all phenomenal. They're great, but they're great in this box, right? And it's like, dude, I always say that I can help you when it comes to a decision you made that didn't turn out good, and the consequences of that decision were less than optimal, right? But
Mhm.
I can't help you through whatever internal regret you have from decisions you didn't make. So
Yeah,
whether it be in competition or, the idea of there's someone always bigger and badder than you is beautiful. Become friends with
yeah,
that person, learn from them, find another person that's bigger and badder than you, become friends with them, learn from them, and
yeah,
continue the cycle.
yeah.
There's
It's like
there's
if you're the best person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
100%, 100%. And being undefeated is relative, right? So like physically, I can do a lot of things to a lot of people.
Mhm.
But mentally I can do a lot more things to a lot of people, and you can change that narrative too, in what direction. Manipulation isn't always a bad thing. There's this tightrope that we have to walk, right? And it's kind of like, as society, we hold this 5 gallon bucket in one hand that leads us to the dark side, right? And
Mhm.
we forget that we can move it over and do the same thing, but you've got to immerse yourself in some sort of evil. You've got to understand what that dark side looks like before you can ever, understand where to look for light at. and along the way, there's going to be people that are lighthouses that kind of help guide and direct. But as long as you know where to look, you're going to be fine. It's when you stop looking that everything turns dark. So
Mhm.
there's so many ways of being undefeated, and physically, cool, man. Mentally, that's one that you should probably hone in on more than anything.
Yeah.
That's also having your boys in wrestling is phenomenal, man. That's something that's gonna humble them physically. And then
Hmm.
the mental side comes a little bit later on, I think.
Yeah. Um, with that mental side, you talk about being mentally undefeated. What does that mean to you to become to be mentally unbeatable?
Yeah, so it's kind of like when the bell rings, right? So like when you ring the bell, whether it be you're in remission, right? Then shit really gets hard because now you've got this like part of you that's missing. It's had such an impact in your life and now it's taken away. Although it's negative, you had a lot of time you probably should have sat with your thoughts. And I think if you can position yourself mentally to where there is a way out, you just have to build the system to do that.
Hmm.
You really can't be beaten in any aspect. Like it's keep the beatings coming, right? Like as long as your recovery time is better, you can start to change the narrative and the outcome of all these things. It's when you get down in the dumps and you can't get out of them. It's when you've carried the pail on the one side and you're too immersed in the darkness. Now you don't see light because you're not looking for it. So if you can always find, as corny as it sounds, the silver lining to something, it's really not that bad, man. Like it's shitty, it sucks, and there's probably going to be some more things coming, but you can relate that to faith, man. The moment you start doing what you're supposed to be doing and you're marching to the beat of that drum, dude, put your helmet on because shit's about to get really, really messed up in your life. Like your things are going to be coming out of the woodworks, things that you may have always wanted, and then now you realize that you don't want them, you don't need them, but they're there. It can
Hmm.
be in relationships, it can be in anything. There's poison that's going to be positioned in your life, and that's not God testing you, dude. That's the devil wanting you to be exactly where you are and not grow outside of those things. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So, what I'm hearing you say is, in a nutshell, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Hmm.
Um, and being intentional about taking hold of your thoughts, taking them captive, changing those thoughts to purposely look for the light, look for the positive, look for the silver lining, and then to intentionally move towards the light,
Hmm.
intentionally grow and be better. And like you said, the adversary doesn't want us to grow. He wants to keep us where we're at,
Hmm.
and with that, thinking about your story, in the last year, you've gained this huge following. You've impacted a lot of people already. You're trying to do this huge thing. Um, it almost seems like the adversary doesn't want you to do that. And so here you go for round three.
Dude,
Hard
I
thing
see,
on
and
that.
that's an interesting point, and then I'm gonna flip it a little bit.
Okay.
So we talked about Peter earlier, right? And this is something that I've really been, it's like heavy on my heart. If you remember correctly, Peter was out there fishing with all the dudes and they weren't catching nothing. And this guy at the shoreline was like, "Hey man, have you tried casting that net on the other side of the boat?" And everybody kind of mocked him. It's like, "Yeah, of course we've tried to cast on the other side of the boat. What do you mean?" And they did it anyways, reluctantly. And they had so many fish in that net that they couldn't pull it into the boat. So
Hmm.
Peter immediately was like, "Dude, that's Jesus." And he jumped in with his robe and everything, swam to the shore and started just professing his love to Jesus. Like, "Jesus, I love you so much." And Jesus just calmly asked him, "It's like, Peter, do you love me?" And he's like, "Yeah, of course I do." He's like, "Well, tend to my sheep." So he does that and he goes back. He's like, "Peter, do you love me?" He's like, "Jesus, of course I love you." And he gives him another task and he goes and does it. And then Jesus asked the third time, making it a full circle of like, "You've denied me three times already, knowing the things that I've done for you and the things that you've witnessed. You've denied me the three times." And then I look at my third diagnosis as kind of the same thing as like, "Caleb, do you love me?" Because everything that's happened in my life from getting cancer the first time to the last has improved my life tremendously. It maybe has physically like dampened me a good bit, but it's made me rewire a lot of the things and a lot of the capabilities I have, how I can impact people, how I'm able to speak with people, and how something as simple as putting my message on the internet has the opportunity and already has reached millions and millions of people, so it's like I, I oftentimes look at it like the final Caleb, do you love me? And what am I supposed to do with this? Like I'm gifted this opportunity to broadcast how you're supposed to fight, and millions of people are going to get to witness how I do it.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely, man.
the message is just a lot different now, right? So it's like um, maybe I'm supposed to maybe I'm supposed to do it a different way, and maybe I'm supposed to express like, hey, dude, through this faith, through gratitude, through servicing other people, I'm being serviced. You know what I mean? Maybe that's the whole message. I don't know. This is obviously me guessing, but I know that every time that I've gotten it, I've gotten sober, I've gotten closer to God, and I've gotten a better understanding of what I'm supposed to be doing. And now we're just narrowing that scope in a little bit more, honing it into where like, all right, dude, that's it. And then once I get that dialed completely in, it's gonna be amazing what's gonna come out of it.
Man, it's so powerful. I had I'm 37. I had a heart attack on about 5 months ago, 6 months ago, about 5, 6 months ago.
Mm.
Anyways, I was just visiting with another man in his early 40s who had a heart attack as well earlier this year. Both of us are healthy, fit, work out all the time, eat super healthy. Um, and the whole idea of would we change that? Like, and what you're saying right now is, each time that something bad has happened to you, you've gotten better. And if anything, it's made your life better. Um, and that's inspiring for people like me, inspiring for really anyone else out there who's had something difficult happen to them. Um, it's a choice. Like going
Oh
back,
yeah.
want to change it? No, it can be a good defining thing in my life. And it can be something that points others, back to Jesus. It can point others to the light. And that's what you're doing right now, man. That's huge. So huge.
I
Thank you
appreciate
for
that, man. Yeah,
that.
absolutely, dude.
For you'd mentioned that you coach.
Mhm.
And you said it's more than just exercise. For people who are interested, how do they find that with you? And what does that look like to do that with you?
Yeah, so basically you just shoot me a DM or you fill out the link in my bio, but it's when I say it's like fitness is kind of the door opener, and I don't coach just anybody. Like I want people that have issues. Like I want people that maybe have lost the confidence or maybe given up on themselves a little bit or maybe struggle with depression or have some sort of vice that they can't get over because everybody on the program does. So when you immerse yourself somewhere where there's so much good, and there's vulnerability, like I've cried on my Zoom calls, I've told my testimony. We've had people tell their testimony. Like there's power in community, and when the community is selected,
Hmm.
I love AA. I think AA is great. I never had to go, thank God. My path was a little different, but when you have people from all different walks, there's moms, there's dads, there's young men, there's old men, and all these people are wanting the same thing. It's like, and you're able to give it to them, not because I have some crazy ability, but because I've orchestrated something that is so cool that now I have value from all these other lives that just trickle in and we feed off of each other. And that's where the things happen. If you want to get in shape, that's great, dude. I can help you with that. That's super easy. But it's the keeping you in shape has got to be a system changing. There's got to be a pattern that's disrupted. There has to be something that's implemented for the long term.
Yeah.
There
It's
can't
it's like
just be in shape.
absolutely. It's like any young kid can be in shape and fit, but now you get into your 30s, 40s, you've been battling illness, whatever, to still
Mhm.
be in shape. That's beast mode right there. Like
Mhm.
that takes discipline.
Yeah, yeah, and even the deal is too with discipline. It's like that's something that everybody talks about on Instagram. It's like or what's motivating you. It's like, dude, You, we look at this big picture of success, and it's like when we fall short of it, we beat ourselves up, and very rarely are we even acknowledging the good things that we're doing compared to like the past 3 months, even.
Hmm.
And if you can consolidate the things that you've done in a day, and you have a checklist of something that you do, it would be simple things,
Hmm.
and you can maybe not check all of them off, but then you go back and you revisit that list every single day, and you write down why you didn't achieve that one thing. Well, now that turns from an idea into a plan because now you know what stopped you from doing it, and now you can start to slowly implement that in the next day and the following day and the fall, and eventually you're gonna have more boxes that are colored green than you have red, and that's important. It's the idea is that everybody's gonna touch the stove. You know what I mean? Everybody's gonna put their hand on the stove no matter how many warnings they have, and we walk through the fire and we beat ourselves up and all this shit. And then right around the corner is the blizzard, dude, and it gets really, really cold. Now we don't know how long that season's gonna be, so we always all do the same thing. We turn around to where we remember being warm. We don't recognize how hot it was. We just know that we were warmer than what we are now. So fear stops us from going through the blizzard and then reaching that tropical season, the one that we can actually be in for the rest of our lives. So we run away from that because it's the unknown. But if
Yeah.
everything you've known has been negative and everything you've done to this point has not fed into your cup, it's probably a good time to just, buckle down and get through the blizzard and then you can start kind of figuring out what the other side of it looks like. Because if we keep going back to where we were warm, dude, you're gonna continuously get burnt. That's the narrative, right? So
And
I,
with what you just described, that way of checking those boxes and then asking the questions, being honest with yourself, and then being willing to make those changes, it's almost like you're using that to create a system to take the place of discipline. Like then you
right,
start, as you're making those changes,
100%.
you're creating systems that push you through that blizzard.
Hmm. And then in turn, that is discipline.
Mhm.
This discipline isn't, it's not the idea of, okay, yes, I'm going to do this because I have to do this. Discipline is realizing, like, okay, I drove to the gym because that was one of my deals, right? I needed to go to the gym and I made it there. But something kept me in my vehicle and I didn't make it in the gym. But then you spent the time listening to whatever song that is or spoken word poetry or you decided to read and you're in the gym parking lot. So you got kind of that thing done, but you needed more internal work. So instead of going in the gym and having some half-ass workout, you decided to work on yourself and you just took that time to be with you. That doesn't mean
Yeah.
that you didn't go to the gym. You just had to put work in another area, but you
Yeah.
recognize it. That's discipline. Discipline is understanding like, yes, I should be doing this, but I need to do this right now. I need to take this as a priority right now, and then doing that. But instead of us thinking that that's how that is, we just see the fact that we didn't go to the gym.
And 100% way to also take another situation and find the positive in it. But to find that positive, you have to be self-reflective enough to be honest about what you were doing because
Mhm.
there'll be some people who listen to this and be like, yeah, I just kind of listened to a song, but they're like listening to Katy Perry and daydreaming and just not going in there. And there'll
Yeah.
be others who do what you just said and they're actually reflecting. They got some real stuff they got to work through. Maybe they have a really difficult conversation they got to have with their spouse or their child when they get home later that night. And that's what they're working through.
Well, and that's the thing too, is that's where the pen to pad works out, right? So like I always say the difference between $1 million idea and $1 million plan is how you write it on a piece of paper. Because
Mm,
we all have these $1 million ideas and it's like I'm gonna do better, I'm gonna do this, but there's zero track record. So you fall back into the same pattern that you did before because we are creatures of habit. No matter who wants to, David Goggins can say whatever he wants. We're creatures of habits. He's just created habits that's now his thing.
yeah.
So, but if you were never shown or never told you could make the football team, or you were never shown even how to try out, so there's these steps that need to be taken beforehand. And some of those people get so upset, not realizing that the foundation is there. You work your ass off, you provide for your family. You have so many disciplines that you
Mhm.
can that you can utilize and you can tap into, but we don't recognize that because, well, I'm supposed to do this. Yes, you are. You are supposed to do that. But you're also supposed to do this, this, and this. Now we just have to
Yeah.
add these in a way that, the structure wise, that foundation is strong enough to hold whatever we're building on it. And then recognize if that's even the place that you're trying to build that house, right? Like
Mhm.
you see so many times people are like dragging my family up the mountain, and it's like, that's great, dude. That's awesome. And it looks really cool in a quote on Instagram or behind with some beautiful background and it's inspirational. But like, what if there's an ambush on the other side of that mountain? If you don't know what it's like to be there and to do those things, and you don't know you haven't beat down a path for your family to travel up, all you're doing is bringing your family into an ambush. Like, I mean, look at the promised land, dude. Yeah, that was not a good look.
Yeah.
So, but there's things that can come out of it, but you got to understand like what are the avenues? How can I get us there? and you're not going to be able to bring your family up there first. You need to go scout that out, see what it looks like, and then implement the structure to make sure that you can replicate it for the people after you.
So what you're saying is, as a husband, as a father, if you're trying to lead your family somewhere that you've never been, maybe you should be trying to get
It's
yourself there first.
it's impossible, dude. It's impossible to do that. It's like leading your family to water when you're thirsty.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, if you had it figured out, you wouldn't be thirsty. So,
Hmm.
so you either need to find a way to keep yourself hydrated, right, to a point where you have access to that, or, like I've got a beautiful daughter, dude. I don't want her. I I get so worried about what kind of man introduces himself into her life.
Yeah,
But I know that I set a hell of a standard. So she sees how I operate. She sees the things that I do. She sees the disciplines that I have. I can't tell her to not be with an abusive man and then abuse my wife. I
yeah.
can't I can't tell her not to be undervalued and then undervalue my wife, dude. I can't tell my kids to be strong and they're not seeing me do those things. I can't tell my boys to be a protector if I'm not willing to protect, right? Like there's these things that you have to be able to have, and we're in a society right now where it seems like you just bash the man and all this stuff. So it's great, dude. I'm gonna continue being what I feel like is a good man, and I'm changing that as I go. But the groundwork's already there, and people don't have to agree with it. We're in a strange time of life, right? But
Yeah,
everything's seasonal. So the best thing I can do is same thing with faith, dude. The quickest way to lead somebody to God is don't tell them where you're going. You just put yourself in a position where they trust you so much to follow you, and they're gonna get there.
yeah, yeah. That's a powerful statement. I haven't heard that before. Um, it falls right in line with the idea of you're going to be much more effective if you show God's love by the way you live than if you're trying to hit him in the head with the Bible. You know.
110%. I That has never worked for me. I think going to church is great. There's a lot of information there, but we live in a world we've never had more access to information in the history of ever, and we're dumber than we've ever been. That's a choice
That's
thing. You know what I
that.
mean? That's a
Yeah.
choice thing, dude. So,
Yeah, that is.
I tell when my kids ask me a question, I'm like, you literally have a computer in your pocket. But I give them the answer, and then they're like, well, how do you know that? And it's like, well, this is how I know that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like this is the part that the internet won't teach you, But
Hmm.
you can look at 15 million different versions of a single scripture and you can get really confused.
Yeah.
There,
That's
there's
very
so
true.
many, there's so many things, but also the decisions you make. I'm covered in subpar tattoos, dude. I've got some of the trashiest tattoos you can have. I wouldn't remove them for nothing, but I'll tell you what, the idea that I can say a curse word and speak about religion in the same sentence, and I don't feel like I'm going to hell for it, and I'm covered in tattoos, and I'm a little grungy, and I make bad decisions, and I'm still open to learning about that and I can own that, dude, I'm going to be able to speak to a totally different group than most people.
Yeah. That's absolutely right. Absolutely right. You're being real. You're being yourself. Um, and I think too many in the Christian community feel like we can only show the best version of ourselves. We can't let people like going back to the social media thing that you said, like we need to show our Ferrari, but we don't want anyone to see what we did to get that Ferrari.
Yeah, dude, it's a wild concept. It's like what are we gatekeeping here? You know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
like I work with other coaches that are trying to build their business and they're like, hey, like so and so said that, like if any of my clients ever wanted to go to another coach, I'd be like, well, let me help you pick them. I know that there's some great people out there. Don't end up with someone that's going to do you wrong. Like there's no competition. It's a big world out there, man. And people need to
Yeah.
learn from multiple different people. So but you have some of these guys when they start getting successful, all of a sudden the person that mentored them don't want them to be that successful. I'm like, bro, that was the whole point. The
Yeah.
whole the whole point was to be a part of that person's story to where you impacted, you helped them enough that now they can help somebody and it continuously goes. This gatekeeping deal, like or somebody said, it's like, oh, I don't want to give them too much value. Like, like you sound so ignorant. Well, you make it seem like you have so much value. Like you don't. You know what I mean? You may have some value in a couple of things, bro, but you're not special. None of us are special.
Yeah.
We just play different roles, man. That's it.
Man, I love that. I love that. Man, I don't want to take up a whole bunch more of your time. You've already given me an hour. And this has been such a powerful message, Caleb. I kind of want to summarize a few things that I personally have gotten from it, and I'm hoping that a lot of other people have gotten from it. But number one, I feel like probably the foundation of this message from you is the outcome is what we choose it to be. Like all of us have things we struggle with. All of us have had bad things happen to us. And it's not about, something worse happened to me than to you or her or trying to one up each other that way. But the truth is, we all struggle. And we can choose to make that struggle something that makes us better and defines us for good, or something that pulls us into the dark and keeps us there. I think that's the foundational message I've gotten from you today. Number two, we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. Three, we're never done struggling. As long as we're in this life, we're going to have obstacles we're trying to overcome. But in doing that, we can help others along the way. And really, it's about community. It's about other people. It's not about me. It's not about things that I've struggled with. It's about the other person. It's about outside of me. And I think we can overcome so much anxiety and depression by simply changing our perspective from being introspective to external. Like, how can I help Caleb, or how can I help whoever? How can the listeners help Caleb's nonprofit and help Caleb reach out to other people? Or how can we use Caleb's example to do that same thing in our lives with the people around us? If we haven't chosen to see things that way, if we haven't chosen to grow and to be better, and to climb that mountain, we're never going to be able to lead those we love to do the same. I like you said, I can't expect my children to make healthy choices if I don't make healthy choices. I can't expect my daughters to find a man who's going to cherish and provide for them and treat them with value if I don't treat their mother that way. Absolutely. And ultimately, all of this points back towards God's love, towards Jesus, the example that he gave for us, and the calling that he has for each and every one of us, and the purpose he's given us, and the freedom that we get in pursuing that. Those are the things that I've gotten from this conversation. Is there anything else specifically that you want people to hear, or to walk away with from this?
Dude, I think you pretty much nailed it. The one thing I'll say, no matter what, where you're at in your journey, whether it be fitness and faith and your relationship, whatever it is, um, if you don't stop moving, it's going to be very, very hard to get stuck. And if you do get stuck, there's a lot of different ways to get unstuck. But as long as you keep the momentum, that's the hardest part is just getting it started. Once you get it started, man, start leaning into other people, man. Lean into the word, lean into anything you find inspiration in, for that quote unquote motivational part, because that is a good fuel in the beginning. But then document the things that are working and document the things that haven't worked, because now you have a track record, something to reflect on. But at the end of the day, you will not get stuck if you continue to be in motion. So you may not get there faster, you may not get there on the time that you have scheduled, but just like anything in life, dude, when you're late for work, you start speeding. Normally, you get pulled over and you get there a lot later than what you were going to if you just went the speed limit. So, there's some life lessons all around us. You just got to make the connecting pieces.
Yeah. And so to summarize that, use the motivation things around you to get started. But once you get started, keep yourself moving, document things, see what works, what doesn't work, and continue to build your system that keeps you moving in the right direction, and use that to fuel your discipline. Is that right?
Absolutely, man, for sure.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Caleb, I really appreciate you, man. And I hope this isn't our last conversation. I think you got so much to offer people. For people who want to follow you, what is your handle on Instagram and your other socials?
Yeah, so it's Caleb underscore Watt on Instagram. Facebook, I think it's just Caleb Watson. And then I don't really even get down with the other ones, but I'm sure it's the same handle on the other. I'm not real good at all that stuff. But yeah, so it'd be pretty easy. If you ever need to reach out to me though, Instagram is definitely the way to do it. If you got a Facebook, then I've
Okay.
I've been more active on there. So
Okay, awesome. Well, I encourage everyone to reach out to Caleb if you guys need it. And also, Caleb, if there's anything that I can ever do for you, please don't hesitate to reach out, man. I'd love to help you. The way you're inspiring people to help, people need to help you as well. So thank you so
Yeah.
much, brother.
I appreciate it, man. Just keep being you, man. Keep doing what you feel like you're supposed to be doing, and I think that I think you're gonna feed back into everybody the same way. So I'm pretty excited to watch that happen.
Awesome. Thank you, Caleb.
For sure, man.